Season of the Haunted, it's here, and you've read the title, so I'm not gonna try and waste your time on an intro. Season of the Haunted is an interesting case. It borrows a lot of concepts and areas from vaulted or underutilized content, freshens it up, give it a spin, and makes us question our past trauma and place in the universe. I first want to say that the removal of the Leviathan raid, letting them sit in the fungal wastes of the DCV, and then spitting it back at me kind of feels a little depressing, but I'll let it slide for the reasons we'll get to in a minute. This is a prime example of what the DCV is able to do for the live game. While most experiences from the DCV have been changed so little it is indistinguishable from the original, this time it works so well I barely consider this to be a callback to Old Leviathan. So let's get into that, shall we? The Leviathan was vaulted back on November 10th, 2020, with the release of Beyond Light and the promise of it being re-added someday down the line. Well, now is that time. And I do agree that the Leviathan, it's different. It's really different. Areas are conjoined differently, with portions of the underbelly being in completely different areas or being blocked off entirely. Fungal growths will line your corridors and writhe as you approach them. The once golden and pristine palace has just been taken over. It's such a massive change of tone and style that it honestly feels completely different. My first time making my way through the Castellum back then and now are completely different experiences, and I absolutely love it to death. I certainly do appreciate the callbacks, and the feelings I get walking through the corridors for the first time after nearly 2 years is, it's palpable. It's a pungent experience. If it wasn't for the disgusting fungal growths and growling, I would feel kind of comfortable in this space. The addition of nightmares is also very interesting, since that concept was left to rot back in Shadowkeep and did nothing for the entirety of that time. And it's been placed back into this new horrifying space with a new purpose and context. I love the merging of these two concepts to change something that was so completely different into making its own identity. I genuinely love it. And I'm sorry for gushing over level design and tone, but it's genuinely impressive how well these things were made to feel new and fresh, despite us basically being here before for hundreds of hours. I think it's incredibly impressive. This is just what the DCV can do when done right, and I really hope Bungie understands what they did and will continue doing it moving forward with unvaulted content. There's a pretty high chance that areas of the Leviathan are still locked off until further in the season, things like the dungeon and weekly resets, what have you, so we're a few weeks off of release until we get the full picture of what we'll be experiencing, and we'll know what happens when that time comes. Enough gushing about the level design and the music and whatever, let's talk about the gameplay of the season as I see right now. It is pretty similar to Risen, with the helm space being basically copy-pasted from one to the other. While I don't believe it to be much of a problem, I do hope Bungie doesn't really get complacent and just continues to do the same thing for every season. It would be nice to see some changes, but for right now, it doesn't seem to be with the current system. What's different right now is the gameplay loop. This season's theme is, brace yourselves, public events and exploration. Now wait, hold on. I know this sounds like a bad idea, but please hear me out. The new public event containment is already miles better than any public event you've ever known or have experienced or what have you. For starters, you actually have 2 separate playlists of the Leviathan, one for exploration and one for the public event. However, as far as I can tell, they're exactly the same. You spawn in the same place, can do the same things, kill the same things. The playlists, from what I can tell, are purely identical and completely psychological, as it encourages players to go into the playlist they intend to engage with. The description even tells you if you're intending to do this type of content, go into this playlist. It has no effect on the game whatsoever, and I think it is ingenious. It funnels people into playlists of content that they're actually going to engage with without cutting pieces of it off for either or. It is a perfect solution. I think it's a great time. To start with the public event that we've already played, it's very simple, and you've already done it before. You kill thing, you dunk ball, you get relic, kill bigger thing. It's a concept that has been done so many times, and it doesn't get changed much or at all for that matter. You have a cool new scythe to mess around with, and that's about it. You can pretend to be a 19th century farmer. That's about it. You do 3 waves of this, kill thing, go to next wave, kill more thing, go to next wave, and after the 3rd, you get your loot. I do have some things to say about the event as it stands right now. Firstly, it's a little too long for a public event style activity. To go from wave 1 to 3 will definitely vary based on your team. If you're stacked, it'll be real quick. If you're not, it's going to take forever. However, on average, I think it was anywhere from like 12 to 15 minutes. Now, if the amount of loot you got was good, that wouldn't be a problem. But, not really. Firstly, you have to acquire the new seasonal currency to even open the main loot with a secondary chest just spitting out 1 or 2 drops. They're just world drops too, not even seasonal. So if you go into this Castellum area and you go do the event for 15 minutes and you're like, oh, I have 100 less currency than I need to open this, you effectively get nothing. At first, this seemed like a problem with currency being kind of a slog to acquire at the beginning with no upgrades and stuff like that. But the addition of the armor set allowing you to acquire more of this currency definitely makes it a little easier in my opinion. It's just getting that snowball rolling is the real issue. Besides the loot being badass, nothing really stands out with this event, and I was hoping more bosses, new events, whatever. We'll see how it progresses as the season goes on, but I don't see this keeping my attention if things do not change. New bosses, new events, new mechanics, stuff like that. I'm getting really fucking bored of kill thing, grab ball, bring to place. That's getting really annoying. I know there's not much you can really do with seasonal activities in terms of mechanics. It has to be sophisticated enough where it's not just killing things for 15 minutes, but it also has to be accessible enough to people that don't know anything about raid mechanics or dungeon mechanics or whatever. So I understand the conundrum, it's getting really played out, and I hope things change. Onto the secondary gameplay loop, we have the exploration aspect of it. I already talked about what I liked about the level design, so let's talk the loot and discovery. At current, you can only access the Castellum, the pleasure gardens, and the baths. I'm going to assume that more areas will unlock as time goes on, such as Calus's throne room and stuff like that, but that's to be seen. The underbelly has been pretty much gutted entirely from exploration, besides scripted missions like the Sever mission, so completely forget about that for the moment. Random events will take place within each area. Think of them like a high value target has entered your area type thing. You kill them, you get loot, what have you. Around the area, there's a lot of things to see though. Resources to collect, patrols to do, which are actually kind of neat. I kind of like the patrols. They don't drag on too long. They're actually really good. You also have a chance of getting opulent keys for these opulent chests you might have seen around. These opulent chests will give you the gear from Season of Opulence. While I don't like recycled gear, I will definitely allow it for the sake of it being really good. As far as the opulent keys are concerned, the drop rate is a little too low in my opinion. In my time of 5 hours playing it almost, I've gotten like 2 or 3 keys, and the deep sight resonance drops of these weapons are also not too good. So if I wanted to find some way to grind out to get deep sight patterns, I don't know how I would go about doing that. I'm sure as time goes on there will be more methods of getting these weapons, but at current, opulent key drops are so low that it's honestly kind of a struggle to see how I'd be getting this type of loot, other than focusing it through Umbral Engrams. Now about Umbral Engrams, we have a new resource called Umbral Resonance or whatever it's called, I don't fucking know. But it's a resource tied to the specific season of content that you're doing. If you're doing Season of the Risen content, you will get Umbral Energy for that specific season. Same thing for Haunted. And this will allow you to focus the stuff that you need to focus in those certain seasons without having to have a buttload of resources like you did before. I like this, kind of. It's a weird middle point. You don't get a lot of the resource to focus, but it's not so low that it's literally impossible to upgrade your stuff. It's a good middle ground. I like it a lot. However, I'm not sure how much focusing will come into play, as it requires me to do a lot of playlist activities and stuff like that to grind out. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out later, but for the time being, the focusing is nice, but we'll see how it goes later on. I might not even engage with it as far as later is concerned. As far as story goes, there's not much to really talk about. I'm not very literate in the lore of the Hive, Callus, and Nightmares. However, I have a base knowledge of what's going on to kind of understand and appreciate the story as it's presented. It's really well presented with the intro cinematic. It's really cool. I like it a lot. I'm not going to say I understand it and what's going on, but it's pretty cool. I mentioned earlier that the Nightmares were an underutilized concept, and that untapped potential is being implemented here, finally. Seeing Crow's nightmare of Uldren taunting and effectively torturing him makes me really sympathize with his struggle, and seeing how Caiatl has fucking Ghaul as her nightmare, which has some really weird implications, I cannot wait to see how things go as far as the story goes. The amount of dialogue that is happening in this season is absurd. There's so much talking, there's so much context, there's so much discussion between the characters. It's really nice letting the story play out as I'm exploring. It's really, really cool. Overall, this season is off to a really, really strong start. One of the strongest starts to a season we've had ever, in my opinion. Time will only tell if the hype keeps up or not. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. You know you want to. I'll see you later.